and would calculate what the curve of the balcony would have to be to allow you to walk out far enough to get a view around whatever was in your way. You either have a great view from your window, or Genie Gang gives you the perfect means to go and get one for yourself. A custom balcony with a unique view. I have a big mouth, not always bigger than the bridges. You gotta bear with me sometimes. Up ahead of us, we have a white terracotta-clad building with a clock tower on top. This is the Wrigley Building, completed 1922, designed by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White. This is an example of Beaux-Arts style architecture, and Beaux-Arts is a byword for beautiful. It translates as fine arts in French, part of the City Beautiful movement, which had its roots in Paris in the mid-1800s. Beaux-Arts is about looking into the past for inspiration, looking at the most beautiful structures ever wrought, and incorporating elements of them into modern era designs. For instance, the clock tower on the Wrigley Building is almost a perfect replica of the Renaissance era Giralda Tower, located in Sevilla, Spain. This style, Beaux-Arts, holds a special significance to us in Chicago because Beaux-Arts was the style chosen by architects like Daniel Burnham to reimagine the city. He and his colleagues envisioned an entire skyline populated by buildings like this, ornate and lovely. He wanted to turn Chicago away from the warehousing hub we had been because of the canal, trading route, and to turn us into a center for culture and learning, a Paris on the prairie. And so he looked towards the Renaissance, towards classical antiquity, and towards a Parisian sensibility to inspire this new, beautiful shape for Chicago. Beaux-Arts was the brush he used to repaint our city, and we were defined by it. From the 1880s through the 1920s, this style was us. We are surrounded by the style, of course, not just the Wrigley Building, but look over to our left as we pass the bridge. In the distance, we can see the Jewelers Building with beige, terracotta, decorative water towers in each corner, and the dome along the top. The Jewelers Building, completed 1929, was designed by Guyver and Dinkelberg, and it was built as a fortress. Beautiful exterior, business on the outside. It was a fortress for Chicago's merchants and jewelers. A gangster-proof building, if you will, during the height of organized crime in our city. It incorporated all manner of safety features, reinforced entryways and exits, internal vault space galore, even an armored car elevator running from below street level up through the interior, which, for the 20s, was pretty great. But these features were entirely wasted because the top of the Jewelers Building, that dome, was at one time home to the Stratosphere Lounge, a speakeasy bar run by notorious Chicago gangster Al Capone. The gangster-proof building had a gangster in their attic the whole time. Now, not all architects would approve. Many would come to view this style, Beaux-Arts, as gaudy, that it was covered in superfluous, bourgeois ornamentation, and this rejection of Beaux-Arts would lead to modernism. Look up to the right at a monolithic, black, boxy building. This is modernism. It's minimalism, or austerity. This is AMA Plaza, built 1973, the tallest and last building designed by the father of modernism, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. It's called Miesian style modernism in his honor. There are many different types of modern architecture, though. Compare this black boxy building with these twin curvilinear towers to the right, affectionately nicknamed the Corn Cob Towers, I would think for obvious reasons. These are the Marina City Towers, built 1964, designed by Bertrand Goldberg. He was a student of Mies van der Rohe, and he had a bit of a disagreement with his mentor. Goldberg thought that it was unnatural to design boxy buildings like AMA Plaza. You don't see a lot of right angles or straight lines in nature, not many boxes in the natural form, so why would you choose to include them in architecture? It was this design philosophy which led to his curvilinear Marina City Towers. Modernism, but through the lens of nature, curves and circles instead of right angles or straight lines, and we can see that these are beautiful buildings. And it's a good proof to the fact that modernism does have room for beauty. It's not about doing away with beauty entirely. There is beauty in simplicity, but it's about making beauty not the primary driving point of architecture. If for Beaux-Arts, we could say that form should follow what is most beautiful, then for modernism we would amend this to be form should follow function. Looking ahead of us, on the right we'll see a red brick building with a clock tower. This is the Reed Murdoch Center, completed in 1914, designed by George C. Nimmons. And this is an example of the Prairie School of Architecture, Prairie style. Came about during the same period as Beaux-Arts, at least in the US, 1880s through the 1920s. And while the fathers of Beaux-Arts, or the users of Beaux-Arts like Daniel Burnham, were looking towards Europe, the fathers of the Prairie style were instead looking towards America. Frank Lloyd Wright, Louis Sullivan, William LeBron Jennings, all of them wanted to look towards the heartland to craft a unique style. The Great Plains would be their inspiration. When you picture the Great Plains region, I'm sure you picture a vast, open space with sweeping horizons and sprawling grasslands. That openness is core to the identity of the prairie, and so it is core to the philosophy behind the prairie style. There is a lot of open space here, symbolic minimalism, meant to be evocative of the Great Plains themselves. There are some decorative features here, though. Some of my favorite features are these little cheeky wheat husks that can be seen in between the window mountings, playing with a prairie theme. This style would gain notoriety around the globe because this style would give the world not just modernism, through minimalism, postmodernism, or contextualism. This style would give the world its first skyscraper. 1885, William LeBron Jennings designed his home insurance building. 10 stories tall with a steel frame, the first skyscraper as we reckon them today, and he built it here in Chicago. We are the birthplace of the skyscraper. It's an important part of our city's history and our heritage, the legacy of that prairie style. Birthplace of the skyscraper. Skyscrapers have gotten a lot bigger since then. Look ahead of us on the right at an enormous edifice of limestone. This is the Merchandise Mart, completed in 1930, designed by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White. Frankly, we're going to get a much better view of this building on the return trip. We will talk about it stylistically at that point. For now, I'd like to draw your attention to the right, where you'll see it out front of the Merchandise Mart, a row of large green busts, each located on their own rectangular cliff. David Letterman once famously remarked that these were the Pez Head Hall of Fame. Of course, they're not actually the Pez Head Hall of Fame. These are the merchant princes of Chicago, sort of the founding business magnates of our city. Aaron Montgomery Ward and Marshall Field have busts here, to name a few. In fact, the Merchandise Mart was built for the Marshall Field Company as a consolidated office and warehousing space. And they wanted it built here because just ahead of us lies Wolf Point, the confluence of the three branches of the Chicago River. The main branch behind us, where we began our tour, joins together with the north branch to our right. They combine to form the south branch to our left. It is down the south branch you would find the canal, the Mississippi River Network, and the Gulf of Mexico. And I think today you can really appreciate that Wolf Point is where people are clamoring to live, to work. New construction is going on almost every year. To the right, we have a new office tower that's being built. Wolf Point East will stand about 700 feet tall. It will be joined starting next year by a new mixed-use residential tower, Wolf Point South, almost 1,000 feet tall. They will both join this green residential high-rise from 2.5 years ago, Wolf Point West. Compare these buildings with the completed office towers ahead of us. We have 150 North Riverside to our left. We're going to talk about that building at length, designed by Jim Getch. And the building straight in front of us, which, for the life of me, looks like a giant McDonald's apple pie box. To my head, no, it's yours. That is River Point, designed by Solomon Cordwell Waynes and Associates. Today, I think you can appreciate this is where people want to work, it's where people want to live. But it wasn't always that way. For much of the city's history, most of it, in fact, Wolf Point was the industrial warehousing hub for the city. You built warehouses here not residences, so that you could easily transport your products stored in the warehouses onto a barge at riverfront and float them down any one of the 3 branches, expediting their shipment wherever you needed them to go. That's why the merchandise mart was built here.